My name is Olivia Hart. I'm 32. On Thanksgiving morning, my mother made me put on a paper name tag that said kitchen help. She had my grandmother's recipes stacked beside the cider, already printed under her own name. Daughters who don't bring husbands bring casseroles, she said, smiling for the church ladies. I wiped one spot of flour off my sleeve. Then let the casseroles speak, I said. But here's what my mother didn't know. The oldest recipe box in that room had my name written inside the lid. That is why I'm telling you this now. If your family ever called you loving only when you cooked, carried, or made them look good, stay with me and subscribe if you believe a daughter is more than what she serves. Let me take you back to the first kitchen, where my mother learned to smile while someone else did the work. The first kitchen was my grandmother's. I was 9 when I learned that a woman could stand beside a stove and still disappear. Grandma Ruth lived 3 blocks from First Grace Church, in a white house where the back door stuck every winter. On the Saturday before every holiday meal, my mother brought me there with a grocery bag in each hand and a sentence ready before I had my coat off. Be useful, Olivia. She said it like a blessing. She said it like a rule. My mother, Denise Hart, was beautiful in the way church women trusted immediately. People called her organized. People called her gracious. In our town in Ohio, those 2 words could carry a woman farther than money. We were not rich. We were respectable. That mattered more to my mother. My father sold insurance. My mother ran half the committees at First Grace Church without ever being officially hired. She planned funeral luncheons, holiday drives, bridal teas, and potlucks. But in our house, love was warmest when I was carrying something hot. If I brought home a good report card, my mother asked if I had remembered to thaw the pie crust. If I played piano well at church, she handed me plates before anyone could say much about the music. My brother did not have steady hands. He had potential. That was the first difference I understood. He could be tired because he was growing. I was tired because I had not learned to plan better. When I was 11, I won a small school recital. It was nothing big, just a certificate with a gold sticker and my name spelled right. But Grandma Ruth came. She sat in the second row and clapped with both hands high enough for me to see. My mother clapped too, but she checked her watch before the last student finished. In the car, she said, "We need to stop by the church. The green beans won't season themselves." I still had the certificate in my lap when she handed me the foil pans. At First Grace, she walked ahead of me and told 2 women, "Olivia is such a helper." She did not say I had played. She did not say I had won. She said I helped. Grandma Ruth heard it. She waited until we were alone in the church kitchen, when steam had fogged the small window above the sink. Then she took the foil pan from my hands and set it on the counter. "Play me the song again when we get home," she said. That was Ruth. She never made a speech when one sentence would do. Grandma Ruth had raised 3 children on cafeteria, wages, and church casseroles. Her hands had small burns across the knuckles, pale marks from years of oven racks. She did not talk about sacrifice as if it made her holy. She just did what needed doing, and she remembered who had done it. In Ruth's kitchen, names stayed attached to things. Aunt June's lemon bars stayed Aunt June's. Mrs. Keene's rolls stayed Mrs. Keene's. If I changed the cinnamon in the apple cake, Ruth wrote it down in pencil. Olivia's version. The first time I saw those words, I thought she was teasing me. I was 12. I had added orange zest because I had seen it on a cooking show and wanted to feel fancy. My mother tasted the cake and said, "It's fine, but don't complicate what already works." Ruth tasted it after her. She chewed slowly. Then she took a recipe card from the tin by the flour jar and wrote, "Olivia's version," in the corner. My mother saw the card. Her smile stayed flat. "Don't encourage her to fuss," she said. "She needs to learn the basics first." Ruth put the card back in the tin. "She learned them," she said. It was a small sentence. It fed me for years. By the time I was 16, my mother had turned Ruth's cooking into a public identity. At church, people did not ask if Denise would bring something. They asked what Denise was bringing. She accepted the praise with one hand pressed to her chest and the other hand pointing vaguely toward me. "Oh, Olivia helped," she would say. Helped was a soft word. It could mean anything. It could mean I peeled apples. It could mean I baked until midnight. It could mean the dish had passed through my hands while her name wrote on the lid. One November, First Grace held a harvest supper after a week of rain. Everyone's shoes squeaked on the fellowship hall floor. Ruth had made her brown sugar sweet potatoes. I had made the topping because her arthritis was bad that year. Mom carried the dish in. By dessert, 3 women had asked my mother for the recipe. Mom laughed and touched her pearls. Old Hart family secret. I was standing beside the coffee urn with a wet towel in my hand. Ruth was sitting at the end of the folding table, watching me instead of my mother. She watched the person doing the work. Later that night, after we washed the pans at Ruth's house, she called me to the kitchen table. My mother had gone to the living room to take a phone call from the church secretary. Ruth had a wooden recipe box in front of her. It was darker than the table, with a brass latch that never sat quite straight. She pushed it toward me. I did not touch it at first. "That's yours," she said. I told her Mom would be upset. Ruth tapped the lid once. "Then don't give it to her." She did not say my mother was selfish. She did not say I had been used. She did not say a daughter should not have to earn her place by washing everyone else's forks. Ruth knew naming a hurt too soon can make a child defend the person hurting her. So she gave me the box instead. I opened it after she went to bed. Inside were cards in Ruth's handwriting. Some stained, some clean, some with notes in the margins. My name was on more than I expected. Olivia's version. "Liv changed this. Ask Olivia about the crust. Keep her name on this one." Inside the lid, in black pen, she had written one line. "For Olivia Hart, who remembers people before recipes. Ruth." I closed the lid and sat there with both hands on top of it. The next morning, I hid the box in the bottom of my closet under winter scarves. It stayed with me through college, through my first apartment, through the funeral luncheon where my mother accepted compliments on the pound cake I had baked at 2 in the morning. After Ruth was gone, Mom's language changed. She stopped saying "my mother's recipes" and started saying "my family legacy." Then, when enough people repeated it back to her, she shortened it again. "My recipes." The first time I heard that, I was 24. We were in the church kitchen before Easter brunch. A woman from the Women's Guild asked if the coconut cake was Ruth's. Mom smiled. "It began with Mother," she said. "But I've carried it now." I had the cake carrier in my hands. I had baked that cake. I set it down carefully. No one noticed. That was the year I became a music teacher at a public elementary school 40 minutes away. I loved the job. It was loud and underfunded and honest. Children did not pretend the wrong person had played the tambourine. They pointed straight at the culprit. I liked that about them. My mother liked telling people I worked with children. She did not like saying I taught music. Teaching sounded stable. Music sounded like something that belonged to me. At 30, I stopped coming to every church supper. I stopped answering every Saturday morning call. If Mom asked me to bake for a committee meeting, I asked how many people and whether my name would be on the card. That question changed the air every time. "Be useful, Olivia," she would say. Not kind, not present. Useful. Then came the cookbook. It started with a local article about First Grace holiday meals. Someone had taken a photo of Mom standing behind 3 pies. The caption called her "Keeper of the Hart family table." Mom mailed me a copy even though I lived 20 minutes away. She had circled the phrase in red. 2 weeks later, she called and told me a regional publisher wanted a church family cookbook built around Grandma Ruth's recipes. She said it as if Ruth had risen from the grave and signed the contract herself. "It could be a real opportunity," Mom said. "For whom?" I asked. She paused long enough for me to hear the refrigerator hum through the phone. "For the family," she said. By early fall, the opportunity had a number. $185,000 if the Thanksgiving launch hit its pre-order target, and the publisher accepted the recipes as Denise's family collection. Mom told everyone the number in a whisper loud enough to travel. She told the church office. She told the Women's Guild. She told my aunt at the pharmacy line. She did not tell me. I heard it from Elaine Porter, a woman from the committee who handled outside partnerships. Elaine had the kind of eyes that made people finish their sentences honestly. She found me in the fellowship hall one Wednesday evening. "Your mother must be thrilled," Elaine said. "That cookbook expansion is quite a thing." I asked what expansion. Elaine tilted her head. "The 185. There are numbers that make a room change size. That one did." I did not go to my mother first. I went home. I took Ruth's box from the high shelf in my laundry closet and set it on my kitchen table. Then I opened the draft Mom had emailed, for a quick proofread, the way a person hands you a shovel and calls it a spoon. The first recipe was brown sugar sweet potatoes. Under it, the draft said. From the kitchen of Denise Hart. I took Ruth's original card from the box. In the corner, in her tight writing, it said, Olivia did topping 2010. Keep her name. I looked at the cookbook draft again. My name was nowhere. I checked the apple cake. Denise's holiday apple cake. I checked the coconut cake. Denise's Easter coconut cake. I checked the pound cake from Ruth's funeral luncheon, the one I had baked while my mother slept for the first time in 2 days. Every recipe had been polished, every stain had been typed away, every hand but my mother's had disappeared. She was not stealing food. Food gets eaten and forgiven. She was stealing proof that I had ever been there. I closed the laptop. I put the recipe cards back in order. Then I saw the note tucked behind the divider marked Thanksgiving. I had forgotten it existed. It was in Ruth's handwriting. If Denise ever makes this about herself, show them the box. I sat very still after that. The kettle clicked off. A car passed outside. My hands stayed flat on the table. I did not cry. I was too busy understanding that my grandmother had not predicted a cookbook. She had known her daughter. The next morning, my mother texted me a photo of a name tag. Kitchen help. Under it she wrote, Don't be late Thursday. Be useful, Olivia. The first thing I did was nothing. I did not answer my mother's text. I set the phone face down beside Ruth's box and looked at the paper name tag on the screen in my head. Kitchen help. 2 words. All caps. No last name. No daughter. No Hart. Just a job title for the woman who had carried half the food into that family and nearly all of the memory. The old Olivia would have typed, What time do you need me? I opened the box instead. The Thanksgiving divider was warped at the top. Ruth had handled that tab more than the others. Behind it were sweet potatoes, cranberry relish, spoon bread, turkey gravy, and the dressing my mother always called hers because she added extra sage once in 1998 and built a personality around it. I laid the cards across my kitchen table in 2 rows. Originals on the left, my mother's cookbook draft on the right. I did not need a lawyer to see what had been done. I needed a lamp and 10 quiet minutes. Brown sugar sweet potatoes became Denise Hart's brown sugar sweet potatoes. Apple cake became Denise's holiday apple cake. The pound cake from Ruth's funeral became Denise's Sunday pound cake, which was bold, considering my mother had been asleep on the couch while I baked it in my black dress. That almost made me laugh. Almost. Then I found the worst one. It was Ruth's dressing recipe. The original card had 3 names in the margin. Ruth for the cornbread, Olivia for the stock, Denise for serving. In the cookbook draft, the note had become, This dish taught me that love is service. My mother had even stolen the sentence and turned it into a sermon. I took a picture of the original card. Then I took a picture of the draft page. I did the same with 12 more recipes. I made a folder on my laptop and named it Thanksgiving. Nothing dramatic. No angry title. No revenge. Just the name of the meal she had chosen. Something shifted there. I stopped feeling like a daughter begging to be named and started acting like a teacher, preparing a lesson for a room that had refused to learn. The next morning, I called the church office. I asked for the schedule for the Thanksgiving cookbook launch. I kept my voice light. The secretary told me the blessing would be at 11, lunch at noon, and the ceremonial signing at 12:30. Ceremonial signing. That was my mother's kind of phrase. It wore pearls. I asked who would be there from outside the church. The secretary said Elaine Porter would attend for the publishing partner, along with 2 women from the Regional Food Council. She said my mother had asked for a table near the cider station because the Hart recipes should be near something warm. I wrote that down. Then I asked whether volunteers needed to check in early. Oh, Denise already put you down, the secretary said. Kitchen help, right? There it was again. I thanked her. I hung up. I did not throw the phone. I put it beside the recipe box and wrote the words exactly as she had said them. Kitchen help, right? By Wednesday afternoon, my mother had sent 6 more messages. Bring the blue casserole dish. Bring 2 pies. Wear something plain. Don't distract from the table. Be useful, Olivia. That last sentence came at 4:12 p.m. I took a screenshot. Not because the words surprised me. They did not. A knife does not surprise you after it has lived in the same drawer for 30 years. I saved it because my mother had a way of sanding down her own cruelty once other people entered the room. Later, she would say she had only meant I was dependable. She would say useful was a compliment. She would tilt her head and make me look ungrateful for bleeding. I was not going to argue with her memory. I was going to keep the receipt. Later that Wednesday, my mother came to my apartment without calling. She did that when she wanted to remind me that privacy was a privilege married daughters earned. She brought a garment bag, and the smile she used when she had already decided she was generous. "I brought you something appropriate for tomorrow," she said. Inside was a brown dress with no shape and a collar that looked like it had been designed by a committee that feared collarbones. "I have clothes," I said. "I know." She touched the sleeve. "But you'll be near the serving tables. This will read nicely." Read nicely, not look nice, not feel nice. Read nicely. Like I was part of the signage. Then she walked to my kitchen table. Ruth's box was not there. I had put it back on the high shelf before she arrived. The recipe cards were in a plain manila envelope inside my work bag. My laptop was closed. My mother saw nothing. That made her brave. She picked up my mail, set it down crooked, and said, "Tomorrow is important. I need you not to make one of your little points." I asked, "What point would that be?" She sighed, as if I had already tired her out. "You know how you get when you think you haven't been thanked enough." I looked at the garment bag. I looked at her hand on my mail. I thought about Ruth's note behind the Thanksgiving divider. "If Denise ever makes this about herself, show them the box." "I'll be there early," I said. My mother smiled. "Good. Be useful, Olivia." She left the dress hanging on the back of my kitchen chair. I did not wear it. That evening, I drove to First Grace with a box of old sheet music in my back seat, because I still taught the children's Christmas program, and life has a way of making you do ordinary errands while your family is burning a hole in your chest. The fellowship hall was already half-dressed for Thanksgiving. Folding tables leaned against the wall. Orange tablecloth sat in plastic bins. The big poster near the kitchen doors showed my mother's face above the words, "Denise Hart's Thanksgiving Legacy Signing." She had chosen a photo where her hands were folded over Ruth's old apron. I knew that apron. Ruth had worn it until the pocket ripped. My mother had not worn it to cook. She had worn it for the photograph. Elaine Porter was at the far table with a clipboard. She looked up when she saw me. "Olivia, right?" I said yes. She glanced at the stack of recipe proofs in front of her. "Your mother said you might help with kitchen flow." Kitchen flow. That was a cleaner name for the same corner. "I can help with a few things," I said. Elaine pointed to a printed card. "Do you know if this one takes nutmeg?" The draft says nutmeg, but one of the tasting notes says mace. I looked down. It was the apple cake. "Mace," I said. "Ruth used nutmeg only if the cake was going to sit overnight. Mace if it was served warm." Elaine stopped writing. It was the smallest pause. A pen hovering. One eyebrow moving just enough to tell me she had heard more than a spice correction. "You knew Ruth's method," she said. "I knew Ruth," I said. I let the sentence sit there. Then I picked up the sheet music and walked to the sanctuary. That was enough for Elaine. Not enough to expose anything. Enough to make her look twice. After I got home, I made one more call. Not to accuse my mother. Not to warn Elaine. I called because the contract folder would be on the table, and if my mother had lied about the recipe box, I needed to know where that lie lived. Elaine answered from her office. I said, "I'm checking something for my mother's table tomorrow." "Did she mention whether the original recipe cards would be displayed?" There was a quiet shuffle of paper. "She told us the originals were no longer available," Elaine said. "Lost during a move, I believe." I closed my eyes. There it was, the hinge. "Was that statement part of the launch materials?" I asked. Elaine paused. "It is part of the provenance note she approved," she said. "It explains why the book uses typed family copies instead of the original cards." I looked at the high shelf. The originals were not lost. They were waiting in a wooden box with my name inside the lid. "Thank you," I said. "Olivia," Elaine said, before I could hang up. "Are there originals?" I looked at Ruth's box. I looked at the brown dress on the chair. "Yes," I said. "There are." Elaine did not ask me to explain. That is why I trusted her more than I expected to. She only said, "Then bring whatever you believe should be present." Should be present. Not hidden. Not whispered about. Present. I packed the box that night. I did not put it in anything fancy. I wrapped it in a clean dish towel, the blue one Ruth used to hang over her shoulder when she cooked. I put the recipe cards back in their order. I slipped the photos and screenshots into a thin folder. I added the text from my mother with the time showing at the top. Be useful, Olivia. By then, my mother had already posted online a photo of the fellowship hall, a stack of cookbook pre-order cards, a caption that said, "Tomorrow we honor the women who fed us." Women. Plural in public. Singular in print. 600 pre-order cards waited for signatures. A deposit envelope waited in the contract folder. A chair pin waited beside my mother's place setting, the little gold one they gave to committee heads when a project launched. She had gathered every piece of what she was about to lose and placed it within arm's reach. I slept badly. Not because I was afraid. Fear is loud. This was quieter. This was the feeling of standing outside a door you had walked through all your life and realizing you finally had the key to lock it from your side. On Thanksgiving morning, I dressed in a navy skirt and a white sweater. Plain enough for the kitchen, clean enough for the truth. I left the brown dress on the chair. Before I walked out, I opened Ruth's box one more time. The lid creaked. My name looked back at me in her handwriting. For Olivia Hart, who remembers people before recipes. I closed it carefully. Then I carried my grandmother into the room where my mother planned to erase me. Thanksgiving morning came cold. I reached First Grace at 8:17, with Ruth's box wrapped in the blue dish towel and tucked inside my canvas teaching bag. The fellowship hall was unlocked. The kitchen lights were already on. My mother believed early arrival was proof of virtue, especially when other people arrived early for her. She saw me before I set my bag down. "You're late," she said. "I'm 13 minutes early. For family, that is late." She handed me the name tag before she handed me a greeting. Kitchen help sat in thick black letters across the white paper. She had written it herself. I could tell by the slant on the K. My mother's handwriting leaned forward, like it was already entering a room before she did. I looked at the tag. She looked at my sweater. "You didn't wear the dress." "No, it would have read better." "I'm not a bulletin board." Her mouth tightened. Only for a second. Then she smiled, because 2 women from the flower committee came in behind me carrying mums. My mother turned warmth on like a lamp. "There she is," she said to them. "My Olivia. Always helpful." She pressed the name tag into my palm. I pinned it on. Not because she had won, because I wanted it visible when she lost. The room filled around the signing table. The cider urn went near the wall. The pre-order cards went into 2 neat boxes, rubber-banded by last name. 600 of them sat beside the cookbook display. The contract folder lay next to the pumpkin centerpiece, cream cover, gold clip, pen across the top. Beside it waited the deposit envelope, and the little chair pin my mother would wear for the photographs. Everything important was within reach. So was I, apparently. My mother pointed me toward the cider station. "Stay close," she said. "If anyone asks about the food, send them to me." That was the trap she thought she had built. She wanted me near enough to look obedient and far enough not to be heard. She wanted my hands in the food and my name off the table. She wanted the old arrangement, just with better lighting. I put my canvas bag under the display table, not hidden, placed. Then I started working. I moved serving spoons. I fixed a crooked stack of plates. I replaced a card that said cranberry sauce with one that said cranberry relish, because Ruth would have risen from the ground over that difference. My mother saw me do it. "Olivia," she said. I looked up. "Do not correct the printed materials. The card was wrong." It was close enough. Not to Ruth. She blinked at me. That was new. I did not usually bring Ruth into the room before she did. "Today is not the day for your little tone," she said. "It's Thanksgiving," I said. "Seems like a fine day to be precise." A small sound came from behind me. Not a laugh. Almost one. Elaine Porter stood near the cookbook table with a clipboard in her hand. She looked at the corrected card, then at my name tag. Her eyes moved slowly enough that I knew she was collecting the pieces. My mother saw Elaine and changed her face. "Elaine," she said, "we are just making sure everything is lovely." Elaine nodded. I noticed. That was the first small gift of the morning. Not rescue. Not proof. Just one person in the room seeing the angle of the knife. The next hour tightened. At 9:05, the Women's Guild arrived with pies. At 9:40, the church secretary placed the pre-order boxes on the signing table. At 10:03, Elaine opened the cream contract folder and checked the first page. My mother touched the chairpin twice before she put it on. She did it with 2 fingers, the way someone touches a ring in a jewelry case. After the blessing, she told me, you can stand near the kitchen doors. Smile if someone thanks you. Do not get chatty. Chatty? You know what I mean. I don't think I do. Her eyes sharpened. Do not make people uncomfortable. That one almost landed. My mother had trained me well. A daughter in our house could survive hunger, exhaustion, and being ignored, but making people uncomfortable was treated like a felony. I picked up a stack of napkins. I'll be very comfortable, I said. She did not like that either. By 10:30, the fellowship hall smelled like coffee, butter, turkey skin, cinnamon, and wet wool from people's coats. It smelled like every Thanksgiving I had ever worked through. The difference was under the table, wrapped in Ruth's blue towel. Every few minutes, I felt the weight of it with my foot. Still there. At 10:41, Elaine came to the cider station. Can you check something for me? She asked. My mother was across the room, posing with the cookbook display, while a woman took pictures on her phone. Elaine slid one proof card toward me. It was the dressing recipe. The print version says Denise developed the stock method, Elaine said. Does that sound right to you? I looked at the card. No. Elaine waited. Ruth made cornbread 2 days early, I said. I made the stock. Mom served it. Elaine's pen stopped. Those are different jobs, she said. Yes, I said. They are. She looked at my badge again. That's an odd name tag for someone who knows the recipe better than the author. I did not smile. I wanted to. I didn't. Some families have creative job titles, I said. Elaine pressed her lips together and put the proof card back on her clipboard. That was the quiet place. That was where the morning gave me one breath before the door closed again. If you have ever been handed a label in your own family that was smaller than the work you did, write the word useful in the comments. In a minute, that word is going to cost my mother more than she thought. Let me take you back to the table. At 11:00, Pastor Glenn said the blessing. My mother bowed her head lower than anyone. She always looked most humble when she was about to be praised. I stood by the cider station with a ladle in my hand and kitchen help on my chest. At 11:17, the first woman asked my mother to sign a sample cover. My mother laughed and said they had to wait for the official moment. At 11:39, my aunt told me I should be proud. Your mother worked so hard, she said. I handed her a cup of cider. She did work, I said. That was true. My mother worked very hard at being seen. At noon, people filled their plates. My mother moved through the room collecting compliments like they were loose change. She touched shoulders. She named dishes. She told one woman the sweet potatoes had been a Hart table favorite for generations. I was behind her when she said it. She knew I was there. That was the point. At 12:21, Elaine placed the contract folder in the center of the signing table. The pre-order boxes sat to the left. The chairpin flashed on my mother's sweater. The sample cookbooks leaned open to the title page. Pastor Glenn stood near the front edge of the crowd with his paper cup in both hands. He had blessed the meal. Now he was watching the table. At 12:26, my mother called my name. Not Olivia. Kitchen help, she said lightly, lifting one hand. Could you bring the casserole over? The words traveled just far enough. Not the whole room. Enough of it. I picked up the blue dish and carried it to her. My hands were steady. That mattered to my mother when I was stirring gravy. It mattered to me now for a different reason. She took the dish from me and turned toward the table. Before we sign, she said, I want to thank the women who taught me that food is love. Several women smiled. My mother looked at me then. Her smile widened. And of course, every family needs its helpers. She reached for the casserole like she was about to lift a trophy. Then she said it. Daughters who don't bring husbands bring casseroles. A few people laughed because they did not know what kind of room they were in yet. I set the serving spoon down. It made a small sound against the dish. Metal on ceramic. Clear enough. My mother's smile held. Olivia, she said softly. Not now. I looked at the cookbook cover with her face on it. I looked at Ruth's name beneath hers. I looked at the contract folder waiting for a signature that would turn my grandmother into money and me into help. Then I bent down. I reached under the display table. I brought up the wooden box. I set the wooden box on the signing table. Not hard, not loud, just down. The brass latch clicked against the wood, and that small sound did more to the room than my voice could have. My mother's hand stayed on the casserole dish. Her smile held for one more second. Then her eyes moved to the blue towel under the box. She knew the towel first. That changed her face. "Olivia," she said, still softly, "put that away." I did not touch the box again. "You told them the originals were gone," I said. The women closest to the table stopped moving. One woman kept a serving spoon halfway above her plate. My aunt lowered her cup without drinking. Elaine Porter turned one page on her clipboard and left her finger there, as if she had just found the line she had been waiting for. My mother gave a little laugh. It was the kind she used when a child spilled juice in public. Gentle on top, sharp underneath. "Sweetheart," she said, "this is not the time." "It is the only time you gave me," I said. Her fingers tightened around the serving spoon. "Do not make a scene at Thanksgiving." I looked at the name tag on my sweater. "Kitchen help." Then I looked back at her. "You already did." That was all I gave myself. Elaine stepped closer, but she did not take over. She only looked at my mother and asked, "Mrs. Hart, is that an original recipe box?" My mother's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The room noticed. People always notice silence when a woman like my mother usually has a sentence ready. Elaine asked one more question. Only one. "Did you tell us the original box no longer existed?" My mother looked at the box, then at me, then at the contract folder. That was the order of her fear. I opened the lid. The hinge gave a tired little creak. The smell rose first, old paper and vanilla, and the cedar block Ruth had kept inside to keep the cards dry. For one strange second, I was not in the fellowship hall. I was 16 at my grandmother's kitchen table, with both hands flat on the lid and my name, waiting where no one could erase it. Then the room saw it too. For Olivia Hart, who remembers people before recipes. Ruth. No one had to explain my grandmother's handwriting. Half the women in that room had received birthday cards from Ruth. My aunt put her hand over her mouth. Pastor Glenn took one step back from the signing table. A woman from the guild reached for the back of a chair and missed it the first time. Someone near the cider urn set down a paper cup without looking, and coffee ran over the rim. My mother stared at the inside of the lid. Her smile was gone now. "That box was in my mother's house," she said. "Yes," I said. "And she gave it to me." Her throat moved. She tried again. "Olivia has always been sentimental." I took out the first card. Brown sugar sweet potatoes. I laid it beside the printed cookbook page. Ruth's card had a butter stain in the corner, and my name in pencil. The cookbook page had my mother's name in clean black type. I took out the second card. "Apple cake. Olivia's version," Ruth had written. I placed it beside Denise's holiday apple cake. I took out the third card. The dressing. Ruth for the cornbread. Olivia for the stock. Denise for serving. That one I placed directly in front of my mother. Nobody laughed now. The casserole sat between us, still warm, still pretending to be harmless. The serving spoon had slid a little into the dish. A line of gravy had marked the white tablecloth. My mother watched that line spread, as if it were the thing ruining her day. "These are the originals," I said. "The book says they were lost." My mother's hand left the serving spoon, slowly. As if the spoon had become hot, Elaine picked up the dressing card. She did not wave it around. She did not make a speech. She held it close enough to read Ruth's handwriting, then looked at the cookbook page, then at my mother. "Mrs. Hart," she said, "the agreement was based on your confirmation that the collection was yours to represent." My mother found her voice then. "My daughter is confused," she said. "She helps. She has always helped. But these recipes are Hart recipes." She reached for the card. Elaine moved it back 1 inch. That was all. 1 inch. It was the first time all day someone had moved something away from my mother. Elaine turned the card so the margin faced her. "Then why does this one list your role as serving?" It was not cruel. That made it worse. My mother looked down. The chair pin on her sweater caught the light. Her hand went to it without thinking. 2 fingers. The same way she had touched it that morning. This time she did not look like a chairwoman. She looked like a woman checking whether a door was still locked. It was not. A woman from the Food Council opened one of the pre-order boxes. She looked at the title card, then at the open wooden box, then closed the box again, without taking out a single card. The rubber band snapped softly against the stack. Elaine closed the cream contract folder. The sound was soft, final, but soft. She slid the deposit envelope under the folder and lifted both off the table. The pen stayed where it was. The 600 pre-order cards sat in their neat boxes, suddenly belonging to a story no one could sell yet. "We cannot proceed under your name," Elaine said. My mother looked at Elaine as if the right expression might reopen it. "I can correct the wording," she said. "We can add a note." Elaine's hand stayed on the folder. "The issue is not wording," she said. "It is representation." Then she placed the closed folder against her chest, and everyone understood the word without needing a lecture. My mother turned toward Pastor Glenn. "Surely we can pause and discuss this privately." Pastor Glenn looked at the open box, then at the name tag on my chest, then at the card that said Denise for serving. His face changed in a way I had never seen from him. Not anger, recognition. "I think the private part is over," he said. A woman from the guild reached forward and peeled the kitchen help tag from my sweater. She did it carefully, as if the paper might tear me if she pulled too fast. She laid it on the table beside the dressing card, face up. Kitchen help. Denise for serving. The room did the math without me. My aunt made a small sound then. Not a sob. More like air leaving a tire. She sat down in the nearest chair and kept looking at Ruth's handwriting. The woman who had almost laughed at my mother's casserole joke pressed her napkin into her fist. Elaine set her pen across the closed folder and took her hand off it. No one was rushing anymore. My mother saw the two labels side by side. Her lips parted. For the first time that day, she looked at me and did not seem to know where to place me. Not behind the cider. Not beside the kitchen doors. Not under her name. Just there. I put the recipe cards back into Ruth's box, one by one. I did not rush. I did not make her watch every card. I had already shown enough. Then I closed the lid. "Grandma wanted the food to remember who made it," I said. My mother whispered my name. Not kitchen help, not sweetheart, not useful. Olivia. It came too late to feel like a gift. Elaine picked up the contract folder and the deposit envelope together. Pastor Glenn lifted the pre-order boxes away from the display table. The woman from the guild took the sample cookbook cover with my mother's smiling face and turned it face down. 3 small movements. That was all it took. My mother stood at the table with the casserole cooling in front of her, the chair pins still on her sweater, and nothing left to sign. I picked up Ruth's box. No one stopped me. The first thing my mother lost was not the money. It was the room. People did not run to comfort her. No one shouted at her either. That would have helped her. A loud room gives a woman like my mother something to manage. This room gave her nothing but faces. Pastor Glenn carried the pre-order boxes to the side office. Elaine Porter tucked the deposit envelope inside the closed folder and held it against her chest. The woman from the Food Council took the sample cover from the display stand. She turned it face down without a word. My mother watched each movement. Her chair pin stayed on her sweater. It looked smaller now. I carried Ruth's box to the kitchen, not to hide it. To get it away from the cider table, away from the open casserole, away from the hands that had reached for it only after it mattered. I set it on the metal counter where Ruth used to cool pies after church suppers. The blue towel was still under it. Elaine came in 2 minutes later. "I am sorry," she said. She did not make the apology heavy. I appreciated that. "I did not know," she said. "I know." She looked toward the fellowship hall. My mother's voice was low now. Not crying. Negotiating. Elaine held up the folder. "The partnership cannot move forward under your mother's representation. The advance will be returned. The pre-order launch is suspended. We will contact everyone who paid." There it was. $185,000, reduced to a folder in someone else's hands. I nodded. I did not smile. That matters. There are people who think justice has to look like joy or it does not count. Mine did not. Mine looked like a recipe box on a church counter, and a woman finally unable to put her name over mine. By 3 o'clock, the poster was down. Denise Hart's Thanksgiving legacy signing had been rolled backward into a cardboard tube. The sample books were stacked in a box marked hold. The table where my mother had planned to sign her name held leftover rolls, 2 coffee urns, and the kitchen help tag someone had not known what to do with. The pre-order cards went into the church office in their 2 boxes. Elaine sat with the secretary and made a refund list. 600 names stopped being applause and became phone calls my mother would not get to answer. The deposit envelope left with Elaine. The gold pen stayed on the table until someone finally put it in the junk drawer by the sink. At 4, my aunt found me by the kitchen sink. She did not ask whether I was okay. That would have been too easy. Instead, she picked up the tag from the counter and said, "I should have said something years ago. I dried 1 plate." "Yes," I said. She waited for me to soften it. I did not. She set the tag down. "Ruth would have been proud of you." That did soften me. Not enough to erase anything. Enough to let the plate stop shaking in my hand. 3 days after Thanksgiving, my mother called me. I let it ring once, then twice. I answered on the 3rd ring because I did not want to spend the rest of the day imagining what she would have said. "Olivia," she said. There was my name again. Twice, in 1 week, after years of being a function. "Mom," she breathed into the phone. "This has gone too far." That was her opening. Not "I am sorry." Not "I hurt you." Not "I should not have let you wear that tag." This has gone too far. I looked at Ruth's box on my kitchen shelf. I had not put it away after Thanksgiving. I had washed the blue towel and folded it under the box. The lid was closed. My name was still inside it. "What do you want?" I asked. "I need you to tell Elaine this was a family misunderstanding." "It was not." "You know what I mean." "I do." "Then help me fix it." There it was, polished and familiar. "Be useful, Olivia," dressed up for a phone call. I sat down at my kitchen table. The table was small. 2 chairs, 1 lamp. No committee. No audience. No casserole waiting to make me obedient. "I won't lie for your version of love anymore," I said. She was quiet. For a moment, I thought she might finally hear it. Not the money, not the humiliation, the sentence under all of it. Then she said, "After everything I did for you?" I closed my eyes. That was the door. I had walked through it for 32 years. I knew every hinge. "I am grateful for the things you did that were love," I said. "I am done paying for the things that were control." My mother made a small sound. "So that is it?" "No," I said. "That is the boundary." She did not like that word. People who profit from your silence rarely enjoy the language of doors. We did not repair the relationship that day. I am telling you that plainly because I do not believe in endings where one apology turns a lifetime around like a chair. Some people are sorry only when the room stops clapping for them. That is not the same as repentance. The consequences arrived in ordinary pieces after that. Ordinary is how real things hurt. The following Monday, my mother's chair position on the holiday cookbook committee was paused. The word paused was gentle. Everyone knew what it meant. By Tuesday, the church office had sent an email saying the Hart cookbook project would be reviewed with new attribution. By Wednesday, the commercial kitchen my mother had rented for promotional videos needed a deposit she no longer had. She returned the key in a small white envelope. A woman from the guild told me she saw her do it. I did not ask for details. I had enough pictures in my head. The first Sunday after Thanksgiving, the chair pin came back. It was in a padded church envelope with my mother's name, written across the front. No one announced it. No one had to. The pin had been small when it was on her sweater, but it had carried a whole room of authority. Without it, my mother still looked polished. She just looked unassigned. That was the part she hated most. Money can be explained away. A missing place at the table is harder. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Elaine asked if I wanted the project moved under my name. She said the recipes could still become a book someday, if I wanted that. The offer was kind. It was also heavy. I told her no for now. Not because Denise deserved the silence. Because Ruth's box had already spent too long being turned into somebody else's ladder. I said if the church ever printed those recipes, every card would keep the name Ruth wrote on it. Aunt June would stay. Aunt June, Mrs. Keene would stay Mrs. Keene. Olivia's version would stay Olivia's version. Elaine wrote that down. No ceremony, no applause, just a pen making the right names visible. After the call, I made tea in Ruth's old kettle. The handle was loose. It always had been. I put it on anyway. The first recipe I cooked from the box was not the sweet potatoes. It was apple cake. Olivia's version. I made it on a Saturday, when there was no church event, no sign-up sheet, no woman with a clipboard, no mother telling me what would read nicely. I zested the orange over the bowl and laughed once, all by myself. A small laugh, a real one. I took the cake to school the following Monday. My students did not know the story. They only knew Miss Hart brought something that made the music room smell like cinnamon. One little girl asked if the recipe was mine. I almost said it was my grandmother's. Then I stopped. It is ours, I said. Mine and my grandmother's. That was the first time I said it without asking permission. The box lives on my kitchen shelf now. Not in a closet, not under scarves, not wrapped like contraband. I keep it where morning light hits the brass latch. Sometimes I open the lid for no reason except to see the line again. For Olivia Hart, who remembers people before recipes, love that only shows up when you are serving is not love. It is employment without wages. My family did not end at that Thanksgiving table. It changed shape. It became Ruth's handwriting. It became Elaine closing a folder, because the truth finally had a witness. It became my aunt saying the sentence she should have said years earlier. It became a classroom full of children who asked whose cake it was, and accepted the answer without trying to steal it. Family is not the person who eats what you made and calls it theirs. Family is the person who leaves your name on the card. That's my story. One paper name tag, one wooden recipe box, $185,000, 600 pre-order cards, and one Thanksgiving table that finally learned who had been feeding it. If you have ever been treated like a helper in your own family, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not the work you do for people who refuse to name you. You are allowed to stop serving a story that erases you. Share this with someone who needs to hear that. Comment? I am more than useful if this story found a place in you. And subscribe if you want more quiet stories about dignity, boundaries, and the truth that finally gets a chair at the table.